Battery Bill. Battery Bill. For cameras, computers, cars, or scooters. For trucks, boats, jet skis, remotes. Battery Bill. Battery Bill.
All right, how's it going, everybody? It is episode 59 here on Hawaii Football Now. Glad to have you back with us. Jordan Helly, Hunter Hughes, as always. Big mahalo to Spectrum Mobile, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill for keeping us on the air as we are nearing our 60th episode. We'll be there with you next week. We record this Wednesday, 7 a.m. Hawaii time here. Tuesday, 7 a.m. Hawaii time. I've lost track of my days, Hunter, but it is Tuesday, the 11th. We are set to release this on Thursday, the 13th. We've got a fun episode lined up for you, recapping the San Diego State game, which was oh so close for the University of Hawaii. In the second half, we are scheduled to get Brian McInnis of Spectrum News on to talk about all of the latest with the new Aloha Stadium Entertainment District. I put question mark on the Entertainment District because there are all kinds of things going on. We'll talk to BMAC a little bit later here in the pod to kind of get an update on that. It's all over the place. And if you're a little confused, don't worry, we are too. But a reminder that today's episode of Hawaii Football Now is brought to you by Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union. As Hawaii's largest credit union, they are committed to serving individuals and businesses through its 14 branch locations statewide and convenient digital banking services. As a leader in providing support for the islands, Hawaii USA is committed to strengthening Hawaii's financial wellness and sharing success with members, local businesses, and the greater community. Visit hawaiiusafcu.com. All right, quick opening drive. As we mentioned, Brian McInnis going to join the pod. New Aloha Stadium. We've had the governor's office kind of put out or news come out of the governor's office, and then they had to kind of let out a press release. And then we've got all kinds of different state entities with lengthy acronyms, kind of with competing interests, talk about different things. Again, if none of that makes sense, don't worry. I don't think it does either. There was a first person piece put in the Star Advertiser this past weekend by the governor talking about why he's doing what he's doing. The other fact of the matter is that the governor is out of office in less than 2 months, basically. So there's that to contend with. And again, we'll have Brian McInnis on in the second half to hopefully make some sense of all of that. And the crazy part is, by the time we get BMAC on and by the time we release this episode, there'll probably be something different coming down and how this all works. So we did want to talk about that. We figured it was kind of a good time because you juxtapose our stadium situation with San Diego State City situation, and the first time Hawaii has played in that brand new, beautiful facility, Snapdragon Stadium, which kind of leads us to the transition into the game time. San Diego State 16, Hawaii 14, the final this past Saturday. Hawaii closed as 23.5-point underdogs. It nearly pulled off the upset. As good, I think, as Hawaii has looked on both sides of the ball in a long time, particularly, maybe since some glimpses, some flashes early in the season. Hawaii took the lead late after they went on an 80-yard, 7-play drive following a missed San Diego State field goal. Dedrick Parsons' 22-yard touchdown. Matt Shipley's PAT gave them the lead after they were down 13-7. Then a kickoff out of bounds. San Diego State gets to the University of Hawaii 19-yard line. They kick a game-winning field goal with about 10 seconds left after actually missing an initial field goal when Coach Chang iced the kicker. We can get into that if you want. Not a pretty game. It was 3-0 at halftime. But Hunter, some general thoughts. I mean, this was the game that was there for the taking. And it was a game where the defense, look, after what they performed against New Mexico State, I think you have to say they were much improved, particularly against the run. The offense seemed to kind of have an idea of where they're trying to go, even though they, 14 points, not the greatest, but some improvements. But what do you think? What were your impressions of the loss up in San Diego?
Yeah, first and foremost, it's a heartbreaker, Jordan. I thought that we were primed to kind of watch what happened against San Diego State back in, I think it was 2017, whenever I was still playing, when Viane Moala blocked that field goal for us to win. I think we were at San Diego for that game too. Man, it was just one of those where from the get, it felt like they were gettable. We were handling our stuff on offense and defense. again, the tail of the tape is not that we can't move the ball, it's that we can't put it in the end zone. We've had some unbelievable gashing plays. I mean, the throw to Bowens was as explosive gets. A little switch route over the middle that they just hit him in space and let him do his thing. I hope it's signs of what's to come on offense for what Coach Timmy said a couple weeks back of trying to get the ball downfield to our playmakers in space. So that's at least encouraging. It's tough to always try to summon up the glass half full, type of a read of a loss, but that's the way I see it. There's a lot to take from this as we now are fully into Mountain West play that hopefully we can learn from and go from here.
Yeah, Hunter, it's one of those things, man. When you look at it, right? It's like, hey, everybody knew the situation. They went in as more than 3 touchdown underdogs. And you see the improvement, you see some of the strides, and it's like, dang, we still could have won that game, right? The University of Hawaii was right there. I mean, the defense in particular, we can start there, where this group against New Mexico State, right? They gave up a ton of yards. They gave up a ton of huge plays, was another big factor about that. And they were honestly quite good against the run and held San Diego State to less than 100 yards rushing, 95 total, 2.7 yards per carry on the game. And the longest run that they surrendered was 16 yards. That's pretty darn good. Hawaii, on the other hand, 146 yards on the ground, 6.1 yards per carry. San Diego State total offense, 417, UH 342. Of course, the other kind of side of that coin, right? And if you want to go glass half empty, if you will, they did give up 322 passing yards to a San Diego State team that, as we covered last week on the pod, was averaging like 65 yards passing a game. Like, it was atrocious. And granted, Jalen Maiden hadn't gotten his chance. We all heard the storyline during the broadcast, right? It's a guy who was way down at the depth chart. They were trying him out on defense. He comes out, goes 24 for 36, 322 yards, a touchdown, an interception. He only ran for 9 yards on the ground. He was out there like looking like left-handed Phillip Rivers with that release. But it was a lot of one-on-one coverage, and they took advantage of it. And that's kind of, hey, you're going to commit more guys to the run. You're going to be left one-on-one on the back end. Gave up a lot of yards. And at the end of the day, I think all in all for the defense, they gave up 16 points.
Yeah.
Right. They gave up the last drive. They gave up the last field goal that ended up costing. They gave up 1 touchdown. They gave up 16 points. All in all, that's a pretty darn big improvement.
Anytime that you can average less than a touchdown a quarter, I think that's a banner day for your defense. And 16 is well south of a touchdown a quarter. That's been the name of the game for us the whole season. The defense has been handling their side of the football. It's been the offense. We cannot expect to be a group of 5 team and score less than 30 points a game and expect to be any good. That's just not good enough, Jordan. I've tried to be optimistic with everything else, but our offense has to do better with getting the ball into the end zone, because when we play San Jose at the end of the year, they're scoring points left and right. Chevron Cordero coming off another Mountain West Offensive Player of the Game week. When we play Fresno, they're not going to take it easy on us. It's one of those deals that we can't keep mistaking the fact that we need to hone in on this offense and figure out how to score points. And hey, yeah, we're making improvements with some run and shoot concepts, getting a lot of these receivers out off of the injured reserve list was super encouraging, like Bowens and Nishigawa. But we need to start firing a little bit more on all cylinders to try to get the ball in the end zone.
Yeah, that's the name of the game, right? Whatever you want to call your offense, how you want to attack it, like it has to result in points, right? That's the name of the game. You got to outscore the opponent. And so I'm curious from your standpoint, Hunter, because, as you mentioned, you're starting to see some of the things. I think the return of Zion Bowens and Kuali Nishigai are huge. I think you just saw it out there. There was some miscommunication. There were some missed throws. There were some misreads maybe by receivers where guys weren't on the same page. But there were some flashes. The Bowen shot over the top. I think Nishigaya just has a knack of finding his way open. He just understands the art of route running, the art of getting open and taking advantage and attacking coverages. But to me, it looked like an offense that for the first time in a while kind of had an idea. Like you really started to kind of see some of the ideas that they want to do offensively, where they're trying to attack, how they're trying to attack, some of the route concepts. It seemed to have more direction than we have seen in the past. I'm curious to kind of get your thoughts on how it looked. I get it. Ultimately, look, it's got to get in the end zone. They got to score points. But just in terms of how they are attacking, how they are operating, what do you think of how it looked?
I mean, I felt like we're officially trying different stuff, which is super encouraging. We're not seeing as much of the hitch on the outside zone run mixed in with a tunnel screen, and then that's our 3 and out. That's our drive. We saw some mesh. We saw that over route from Bowens, which hit really big. It looked like there's the beginnings. I don't know if I can completely commit to this statement, but the beginnings of some originality in the play calling, and that's going to keep defenses on their toes. It's not just we're Hawaii, we're run and shoot, we are sticking to the DNA of our team. The run and shoot does so many things for opposing defenses where they don't know what you're going to run every single time you go up to the football. It provides so much originality. So many guys like Nishigawa can get in there and make plays. And so, you know, we're starting to see the fruit of what these guys did in the bye week. And we talked about this last week, that it's tough to measure how much you can actually install in a bye week, but I know as they continue to add in, tinker around, and get things cleaned up, I hope it will result. You know, if we could finish the year averaging, you know, from here on out, if we average 28 points a game, that's a vast improvement from the first half of the season just with scoring. So I'm hopeful mostly towards our offense in trying to get some things going.
Yeah, it looks like it has potential, right? It looks like they've got a little bit more of an identity in how they want to move forward. Braden Shager, 20 of 34, 196 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. Not eye-popping numbers. And again, there were some missed, you know, timing things with the receivers. The other encouraging thing I think of, and you point out some of the receivers, but it's an offense that has relied on the run a lot. That's been their strongest strength through the first part of the season. You start emerging this passing game, but the rushing game didn't suffer, right? They ran for 146 yards, as we pointed out, over 6 yards per carry. Dedrick Parson, 14 carries, 70 yards, a touchdown, which obviously was the go-ahead touchdown, also caught a pass for 8 yards. Tylan Hines, who I love seeing in there, 8 carries, 68 yards, right? Also caught a pass for just a yard. But it's nice to see that they're starting to expand this passing game a little bit. They're starting to look a little differently offensively, but the running game, at least in one game against San Diego State, didn't suffer at all. It still was a very strong suit of this offense. And so it's to me, that was encouraging that, hey, yeah, we're going to commit more to the pass. We're going to throw the ball a little bit more. We're going to air it out, but they were also able to run effectively still, which was to me encouraging.
Yeah. And it speaks to our strongest unit, which is our offensive line. I felt like they did a great job protecting Shager and also moving those guys around. One of our old teammates, by the way, Justice Tavai on the other side of the football, moving him around a little bit and getting some things going on the ground. And that is the secret to a great passing game, is an equally good running game. The running game will always open up the passing game. So you know, with us little over, you know, close to 150 yards of the ground, that is why we were able to see some explosion with the passing game. Jordan, I've been asked by multiple people to get into this. What were your thoughts about that kickoff out of bounds towards the end of the game? Now, do you think it was a strategy thing? Do you think it was us trying to pin them way back and secure the field, or do you just think it was a bad kick?
Yeah, I mean this was on the this was on our notes, right? And we got to
Yeah.
get into it with the the last sequence of the game. I think that's fair to get into, right? Matt Shipley was terrific punting the football. I thought that was a highlight of the special teams, right, in a game that was, a little ugly offensively at times. He averaged 41 yards per punt on 7 punts. Kyler Halverson handles the kickoffs. There was a one earlier to start the second half. It seems sort of strategic. I don't know if we've really gotten confirmation on that.
Yeah, I don't know if we have.
I just think that when you get in those situations, right, sometimes, whether this is the case or not, you overthink things a little bit, right? You work on some things, and I'm sure they've worked on, if it was indeed sort of a directional kick, trying to pin them down deep, coffin corner them on a kickoff, keep them, avoid the big return is obviously the thought process behind that, which makes a ton of sense, right? You've just taken the lead. They've got to go down the length of the field basically to get into field goal territory. If you pin them deep with just a minute, what was it, 19 seconds left or so. But Alverson's got a big leg.
Yes.
You've kind of routinely kicked it deep all season long. To me, it's just like, all right, sometimes you just got to trust your guys, right? Just go out and execute. Well, we've been executing. They haven't given up a kick return for touchdown, right? Have I missed that? Did I miss that throughout the season? Right? No, they haven't. And so sometimes I think it's just, hey, look, do what we do, trust your guys to go out and execute it, and then let the chips fall where they may and make them kind of out execute you, right? And if you change it up a little bit, sometimes it's like, all right, you get a little too cute. And look, at the end of the day, you still got to keep it in bounds, right? You still got to execute the kick. And that doesn't necessarily excuse the kickoff guy in that situation, but it was one of those where it's like, was it trying to do a little too much by everybody involved? Would it have made sense to just trust Halverson's leg as well to boot that thing through the end zone? Was he trying to do that and just kind of missed it a little bit because he was trying to put that thing through the end zone and prevent the return completely?
Yeah.
Hard to say. But it was tough. It did give them, I think, a little life, right? You can argue that, hey, look, they still got to the 19-yard line. So really them starting 15 yards further back probably wouldn't have made a huge difference, but or 20 yards further back wouldn't have made a huge difference. So it did seem to give them a little more hope going forward. What'd you think?
And it was only, at the end of the day, we only gave them 10 extra yards, but the perception was we do that right now when we're clinging to one of the only leads we've had all year. I spent a lot of time hanging with the kickers at practice, mostly because they're the only ones that are standing around long enough to be able to talk. But there's actually a lot of similarities, Jordan, between the kicking game and golf, believe it or not. So I talk with those guys and talk shop all the time. In golf, whenever you are trying to hit the ball hard, the miss usually is a pull hook because you're trying to hit it really hard and your hands get a little too quick. Same thing with the football. When you kick and try to kick it hard, you're trying to compress the ball and the miss is usually a pull. And I believe that's what we saw. So it's tough to tell. We unfortunately don't have access to the headset to hear from our wild special teams coach just exactly what he called out there. But it could have been a mistake. It happens. But then our defense allowed them to go almost 75 yards down the field to flip it around. And some would say, how do you allow that to happen? But the way that you call defense inside of 2 minutes, totally different from the rest of the game, because you can't surrender linebackers and sometimes safeties in in the blitz attack, because you have to protect from a huge play and then winning the game. So you have to sort of play conservative, which is why all these guys in the NFL mount these 2-minute comeback drives, because of all that space that those defenses have to allow for. So unfortunate way for it to go out. But as we've mentioned, there's so much positivity to take from this game.
There really is. And it's like, oh man, you start nitpicking a little bit. You can get into the icing the kicker. Was it worth it? Because Browning ends up missing the practice run, right? Which I think Look, they were going to run the practice run, even if he, called the timeout a little bit earlier. It looked like he kind of half went through the motions on that one anyway. Was that his true best effort, right? Hindsight can be 20/20 on that. He had missed the one earlier. Do you just let him kick it because, maybe he's in his own head a little bit? It's impossible to know really in that situation. You had Aaron Taylor, who called the game for CBS Sports Network, the color guy there, right? Former terrific college football Hall of Famer. The guy won a Super Bowl with the Rams. Tweeted out like a public kind of shout out to the football team and Coach Timmy Chang, and just kind of marveling at how improved they were from the New Mexico State film to what he saw in person against San Diego State, and kind of praised them for that. Gave a little hashtag brotherhood. And that was kind of cool to see, right? And again, it's like moral victories, right? All right, yeah, we get it. But considering where things were 2 weeks ago against New Mexico State, they do deserve a bit of praise for being that improved. Now Coach Chang will tell you, just like anybody else, right? It's like, all right, yeah, but we need to win football games, right? And so that's where it comes down to. So that'll do it for us in the first half. Speaking of winning football games, they hope to get back on the winning track this week, Saturday. We will have a little quick preview of the Nevada contest coming up after this, and then lead you into the BMAC interview before we close out the pod. Second half coming up.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, welcome back for the second half. Jordan Hunter back with you. Before we get to BMAC, a quick little preview of Nevada coming up this Saturday, 6 p.m. kickoff, kind of the usual home kickoff. That'll be on Spectrum Sports Pay-Per-View TV. But of course, we'll always have it for you here on ESPN Honolulu Radio. Our guy Hunter will be patrolling the sidelines. I'll probably see you down there, Hunter, and the Veneri brothers up in the booth calling the action as well. Wolfpack, kind of similar situation. They're 2-4. They've lost 4 in a row, beat New Mexico State and Texas State to start the season. Lost to Incarnate Word. They're in Texas. You can go look them up. At Iowa, at Air Force, and then last week against Colorado State, also on a last-second field goal, also after an initial miss, but a roughing the kicker flag negated that miss, and then Colorado State was able to boot through the kind of redo. Head coach is Ken Wilson in his first year. You'll remember, right, the staff obviously moving to Colorado State. Ken Wilson was at Oregon for 2 years, last year as the co-DC under Mario Cristobal. Spent 7 seasons at Washington State prior to that, and before that, 24 seasons from 89 to 12 at Nevada. So he's a Nevada guy. He's a Chris Auld guy through and through. We know about all of the connections, right? Nick Rolovich, Timmy Chang. There's all the history between these two programs goes back a ways, and the overlap between these two programs, particularly on the coaching sideline as well. Their quarterback situation also kind of unsettled. They've got a pair of guys listed as co-number ones on the depth chart this week, and Shane Illingworth, who is 6'6", 233, hasn't thrown a pass in the last 2 games, but saw some significant action earlier in the season. If you think he's big, Nate Cox has been their guy. He's 6'9", 215, 6'9". You've probably seen some highlights of him. Threw for 244 and a pick last week against Colorado State, only 130 the week prior against Air Force. They've still got a Tawa at quarterback. That's Toa. You'll remember him from recent years. He's 7th all-time in career rushing at Nevada, trying to catch Vi in terms of like total carries and whatnot. He's top 10 in carries and yardage. Tawa averages 72 yards per game, has 7 touchdowns. That's kind of been the strength of their team. Stop me if you've heard that before. San Diego State, Hawaii, right? That's sort of been there. Jamal Bell, BJ Castillo are their top receivers. Their DBs are among their leading tacklers in safety, Bentley Lee and their nickel Tyson Williams. So, look, this is a game that seemingly, regardless of record, always produces like fairly competitive matchups between these two teams, regardless of regime, regardless of game. And so Hawaii comes in, as the last check again, it's about 7:30 on Tuesday morning, 6-point underdogs at home. It seems like another game that Hawaii can show their improvement that I think is winnable for them.
I do too. Looking at everything that you just read, it's kind of just a smorgasbord of a not all that exciting team. Well, I mean, they're okay. It will probably boil down to, again, kind of the name of the game for us. Who's going to step up and be a leader? Who's going to step up and make that game-changing interception fumble recovery. And I would love for a dude to appear on offense, whether that's Braden Shager to just take the reins and say, this is my squad, boys, get behind me. Whether it's Dedrick Parsons doing it on the ground like he already has. Maybe it's Zion Bowens coming off of IR. We need somebody to surface in a game like this that's definitely winnable, and not just stay mediocre. Jordan, I hate that we're using those types of words, but it's just kind of been that kind of a year, and we need someone to smack some heads around a little bit and go, let's go, guys. We're not done yet. Can we win some football games? Dang it. we need to figure this out. So I'm wanting that from our boys this week against Nevada.
And I'm optimistic. I think the momentum of the San Diego State game mixed with the bitter taste of not pulling out the win, I think brings a lot of motivation into this week. And then the fact that, look, I know that we're home for practice during the bye week and leading up to the San Diego State game, but they haven't played a home game in, 4 weeks basically. And so I think that'll help. That'll help as well. And I'm hoping some of the progress shown in the San Diego State game will energize the fans that feel T.C. Ching as well come Saturday. I think there's another opportunity to showcase that they are indeed getting better, that they are indeed in position to start making some noise, start winning football games going forward. All right, quick little Nevada preview there. We've allotted some time to our guy BMAC here coming up. Let's get to that without further ado, talking a little bit of the new Aloha Stadium Entertainment District. We don't know, but here we go. BMAC coming up right after this. All right, we're here with our guy, Brian McInnis. We record this on Wednesday. The bulk of the pod we recorded yesterday. On Tuesday, we record this Wednesday, midday on the 12th, set to release this tomorrow. Of course, our usual release time on Thursday every week here on Hawaii Football Now. BMAC, thanks for coming back with us, man. You are one of our rare repeat guests at this point. So, don't get too big-headed here.
Well, at first, it's an honor to be back. I mean, I feel like I was just on a matter of weeks ago. What was it, episode 51? And here we are at 59, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
So how often in the history of the pod has this taken place?
You might be the first. I think you're the first, to be quite honest.
Oh,
yeah, and not to kind of insult you here, but we didn't anticipate necessarily that Aloha Stadium was going to take another twist and turn, or new Aloha Stadium. Do we just shorten it to NAS now? NAS, because we don't know if there's an entertainment district. Anyway, we got BMAC on because he is a well-rounded reporter for Spectrum News, as we talked about last time we had him on. Has covered the business side of things, especially when it comes to sports, and has been covering the latest when it comes to the new Aloha Stadium Entertainment District. Again, I kind of prefaced it by saying that the entertainment district could be dropped. The public-private partnership apparently is in limbo. A lame duck governor who has less than 2 months in office is proposing some massive changes. There will be a new guy in the governor's office come early December, whenever the inauguration day is. So there, BMAC, makes sense of it all for us, because we've kind of touched on it a little bit here on the pod the last couple of episodes, but we have not really gone in depth. So we figured we'd get you on because you're just smarter than us. So take it away.
Jordan, you just summed it up pretty aptly. I think my work here is done.
None of what I said makes sense, though.
Well, that's where we are. And by the way, I would adjust the project title to NAS with then the infinity symbol after it, because that's like the timetable that we're working with right now.
How about a slash through N and A? Not available.
There you go.
I like that.
Good job.
I like
that we got to bring that up with the next stadium authority meeting. Yeah, guys, it's been mired, I guess would be a good word for it. There's a high level of consternation in a lot of quarters about how this thing has not gone anywhere in the weeks since Governor Ige decided to take this project in a new direction, telling everyone he was stopping the RFP, request for proposals process, for that public-private partnership. bidding process that had been underway for the better part of 2 years at this point, and we're all still kind of waiting to see exactly what entity will take over, that at least he envisions will take over, to set the new order of things in these last few weeks that he is in office. As you said, Jordan, he is very much a lame duck governor at this point. It's a matter of weeks. He's out of office in early December, and either, Josh Green or Duke Iona would be our next governor, you would think, one of those two guys. I mean, and of course, Josh Green being the favored candidate. And then one of those guys will set the direction of this project, either back to what it originally was by what the Stadium Authority had envisioned under DAGS, the Department of Accounting and General Services, before that body, the Stadium Authority, recently is under transition to DBED, the Department of Business and Economic Development and Tourism. So it's a very convoluted kind of limbo that we find ourselves in right now. You've got Governor Ige and Mike McCartney, the DBED director, wanting to, decree that this thing is going in a new design build direction under a state entity to be named. And then you've got the Stadium Authority, which by everything I can tell still favors the P3 process and wants to basically now wait out Governor Ige for the next administration to proceed with this hybrid stadium and mixed use, housing, entertainment district, public-private process. So there's some definite moving parts here, guys, but we kind of find ourselves at a standstill, I would say, is the best to this day, to this hour. I just heard Governor Ige on the Star Advertiser Spotlight right before this, and there were still no details that I could suss out from what he said as far as what's going to happen here. So
that's encouraging.
Just vagaries, it's I know it's consternation, like I said, frustrated a lot of people. That is the best I can sum it up at this point. But I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions you guys might have.
Well, first of all, BMAC, thank you for teaching me a new word, consternation. That's my word for the day. As a former football player, I'm always looking to learn more, and I'll speak on behalf of everybody connected with the team. I didn't understand anything of what you just said, describing what's going on with the program, P3 to P2 or whatever that is. Correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like the same old stereotypical big time construction build in Hawaii. It's just chaos.
There was a fairly convoluted process with that P3 bidding that very, very, grand in scale, very ambitious, what the they had in mind, the Stadium Authority, and we all saw those renderings of the NASED project in the early going, right after the Aloha Stadium, the longtime home of the University of Hawaii, was declared defunct in December of 2020, moratorium on all future events. That's when this process really got kickstarted. And so we saw those renderings early on, and there was a lot of hope that maybe for once, they could be delivered on in a relatively timely fashion. And to Hunter, what you said, now it's just devolved into another big project chaos situation that unfortunately, in the days of rail and predecessors like the H3, the state of Hawaii knows all too well.
Again, people that listen to this show know that I'm an eternal optimist with anything connected with the football team. I might have to change my tone though with regards to the new Aloha Stadium, because it's a failed model, at least for our team. We can't get students to the stadium. If we do get them to the stadium, we can't get them in the stadium. Even if we are winning, in 2019, we had a share for the Mountain West Championship, and we still couldn't get people in the stadium. So all this stuff about, when we start winning, we'll fill that place up. It's just not the case. And from our perspective on the team, it's a failed model that we need in some aspects to keep the party on campus. Do you feel like in some of the conversations and things that you've heard that the powers that be think that this is going to turn things around drastically with this new Aloha Stadium project?
I'm pretty sure that Josh Green is in favor of the mixed use concept in Halava. Duke Iona, I know, is in favor of building out a more robust campus stadium, expanding the Clarence T.C. Ching Athletics Complex, perhaps beyond, the slated 17,000 expansion that will be underway before the 2023 season. But I think there's still a lot of push towards getting it done in Halava, Hunter, and part of the selling point of maybe encouraging more people to fill up, the stadium. For one, a smaller stadium, right? We're talking, by the time this thing gets done, 25K to 30K, a lot more. And the idea was bells and whistles when things like, restaurants that people would want to go to hang out, whether or not there was a game going on, other things like an esports, esports arena attached to the stadium, things like
Top Golf. That'd be cool.
That would be cool. And I know that some of the VIP types recently went up and saw Snapdragon Stadium that the University of Hawaii just played at San Diego State, and all the bells and whistles, a very, very modern style stadium. Also, I think in the 30K vicinity capacity there. You can correct me if I'm wrong, you guys. But it just kind of, I think leaves us all with a bitter taste with how things have just kind of fallen into, stasis again. And I don't know what to tell you guys as far as whether anything meaningful will happen in the next week or two with the governor's plan.
Yeah, we thought we had seen progress, right? It was, hey, Aloha Stadium's moving forward with the PPP. The University of Hawaii had sort of made their own decision that, hey, we're going to keep expanding TC Ching. So you had two projects that seemingly were both moving forward. So there was optimism abound, if you will, even though mixed, I think, with a lot of cynicism when it comes down to it. And so I think that's the other big question, right? Is you've heard from Senator Glenn Wakai, who I know that you quote in one of your Spectrum News write-ups recently on this very topic, who has been a big proponent of the new stadium, whose area of representation includes Halava, who is usually kind of the go-to guy when it comes to any questions regarding this. And he was quite blunt and direct about it, and being basically just another delay of this long delayed project, how that affects the University of Hawaii football program. It can't be good, right? Because, well, I guess it could be good if you argue that, hey, now it's just like, look, we're just going to have to put all our eggs in the basket of all the on-campus stadium, kind of like Hunter was saying. But how does, I guess, from what you've been able to deduce, and maybe in your own opinion, even BMAC, is just how does this affect the football program going forward, where it's like, hey, look, we're recruiting guys to an unknown home. How does it affect the status of not being above 15,000 seats average attendance over the course of things for your Division I status? All of that comes with it, right? From the vantage point of our podcast, at the very least, where we focus on University of Hawaii football. How does it boil down to affecting that program in particular? Yeah.
Well, rewinding real quick, Jordan, what you said about Senator Wakai and some of his blunt comments, his bluntest comment that I quoted him on to date was, Governor Ige should just go away and let this project move forward. I don't know how much more bluntly you can say it for that, frustration that some legislators led by Senator Wakai have with this roadblock that's been put up. So the existing timeline, the latest one we got, Jordan, 2027. That's was everyone's latest understanding of when the NASED project would be completed. Of course, it's been bumped back many, many times. From 2023 was, I think, the initial one. And meanwhile, the University of Hawaii keeps going ahead with its plans to expand the Ching complex. On the last NASED, stadium board meeting, David Matlin, the athletic director, went on and said basically that, like, they asked him for some kind of general progress update on his stadium outlook, and he's like, hey, we're pressing ahead with Ching complex, getting it to at least 15K next year. That's our immediate outlook. That's what we're focused on to clear, NCAA the waiver process for programs that don't clear that 15K attendance threshold. So That's their immediate, cone of vision. And and then they got a follow-up build out for soccer and track and things of that nature. I don't think any of that has changed, especially in light of, this just quagmire. And the university, my understanding, has been a fairly lukewarm recipient to the idea of them taking a lead on the NASED project that Governor Ige has in mind, with a straight design build under a state entity. I'm not sure the university would like to do that. Maybe they'll come out in the coming days, weeks, and say, okay, yeah, we've come around to the idea that may be the best course. But as of right now, that's not the vibe that I get from them.
Yeah, and that's our strongest story from a team perspective. Whenever we're talking to new recruits, whenever we're describing who we are as University of Hawaii football, it is with the Ching complex. And if we can at least get that closer to 15K, I'm in support of Mr. Matlin. That is our strongest bargaining chip right now, is that we've got a brand new on-campus facility. We're making amends to get it up to Division I status. We've had some drawbacks with COVID and what you have, because just trying to describe everything that you just did very eloquently, I might add, bravo, BMAC. It's very difficult to try to describe what is going on, if anything, with this new Aloha Stadium project.
Have we reached, Jordan? Maybe you can, give me a secondary opinion on this. Have we reached boondoggle status for this? Is it too early to declare it?
I think so, only because the money's been spent, but I don't know if we're talking about like hundreds of millions of dollars being spent already, right? Some money's been appropriated.
Money has been, I believe, upward of maybe 20 million on the renderings, design, mock-ups.
Yeah. Plus you can factor in the upkeep of Aloha Stadium as it was, right? Just kind of keeping it upright for the X number of years before they finally just condemn the darn thing. So you can kind of include that. But if you're talking in like the huge, like hundreds of millions of dollars or billions, like when you talk about the rail, like it hasn't necessarily, we haven't spent that money yet.
Right.
We've just spent part of it. So I guess I don't know where boondoggle. I don't know what the Webster's Merriam-Webster definition is, what the threshold is, but we're getting there. We'll get there.
I just saw it on the news that the mayor of Maui came out and said that he is inviting suggestions on how to pay taxpayers dollars over on Maui. If we did the same thing for season ticket holders, the fans of Hawaii football at large, what they would use the funds for with regards to a new stadium, it'd be very interesting to see if they're in support of a new Aloha Stadium or just building up Ching. I really feel like the majority would feel like it's at Ching right now.
By the way, the definition that I could find for boondoggle is work or activity that is wasteful or pointless but gives the appearance of having value. So
yeah, maybe we might be there.
Well, hey, there's of course a real opportunity that something can be salvaged eventually from this and maybe get back on the right track. But I think there's legitimate fears out there that, things stay gridlocked for one reason or another, because that's unfortunately for University of Hawaii, for the state, what's happened to this point. I mean, you can blame a lot of that on the pandemic, sure. And maybe, lawmakers not getting things cleared in a timely fashion enough. I don't know, guys. I really don't.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It really is. And we will keep you on speed dial, BMAC, for later developments, and we'll get you back on the pod whenever anything else develops, because, I think we've kind of covered it at this point. And if it's clear as mud to the listeners out there, I don't blame you for kind of seeing it that way, because for us, I think it still is quite perplexing as to how we keep ending up in a position where you've got competing interests and nobody seems to have a clear direction. So yeah, it's kind of a mess, but we appreciate you trying to sort it out for us, BMAC. Did you have any, did you want to get in anything else on that before we did want to kind of get your thoughts on the San Diego State game and kind of the state of the program as it currently stands? But I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to share with us on the stadium situation.
Yeah, I guess just really briefly, I would say that a lot of the frustration comes from the fact that, directed at Governor Ige, while we all wait on his kind of vision for this before he goes, that from what I've been told, there was not a whole lot of, participation or interest in on his part, on his administration, to have a direct, say in how this project was designed from day one, from the earliest stages, and to interject or insert himself into the process at this stage, just days, weeks from the end of his term. I think it's rubbed a lot of folks the wrong way. That's what I've been told. So
Yeah, that's a little frustrating, like many aspects of this whole deal. All right, well, we'll turn the page. We'll focus on the team that will be back on the field at Ching this weekend, not at Aloha Stadium. A squad that's playing Nevada. We know of all the connections. Hunter and I have talked a little bit about it. Obviously, you got Timmy Chang and his connections to that program. But I know you've been at practice a couple of times this week so far. I think consensus is that this team has made quite a bit of strides going from the New Mexico State game to the San Diego State game. But what was kind of your impressions of the loss to the Aztecs and kind of the state of things as they hit their second conference game this weekend?
Yeah, that there were definite signs of life from the program going into their performance in their Mountain West opener. And shoot, I mean, you looked at how many rushing yards they gave up in that New Mexico loss, 300 plus, and to only yield 95, I believe was the final tally, to San Diego State, a traditional power running team, was impressive. And credit to the staff and the players for the work they put in, in that regard over that bye week plus before San Diego State. And unfortunately, it all kind of fell apart in that last drive by the Aztecs. Several errors on the University of Hawaii's part, starting with that pooched kick that went out of bounds and gave the Aztecs a little momentum in that drive, starting at the 35, and inability to throw up any kind of roadblocks to their safety turned quarterback making his first start. And then the unfortunate timeout and extra attempt for the kicker at the end for the winning field goal. It just kind of if you are a UH fan, I'm sure you threw up your hands in frustration how that played out. But just for the team to have the opportunity to potentially, hold and win that game when they were 23 point underdogs, I think deserves mention and deserves credit to them. And we'll see if they can, keep some of the positives that they found during that game. Guys like Zion Bowens and Shager going deep in those run and shoot concepts, and make it translate to Timmy Chang's, special matchup back with his old Nevada players that's going to take place this weekend.
Looking forward to this weekend, BMAC. You got a prediction at the end of our game against Nevada? Who you got?
I had seen Nevada -6 on the road, a 6-point favorite for the Wolfpack, who have had all kinds of trouble of their own, 4 straight losses on their part, rebuilding, on their end too. Jay Norvell went off to Colorado State, and they are having their own woes. And Nevada and Colorado State just played each other to a near standstill that was won at the last minute by Colorado State. So I was surprised that the line was that much in favor of the Pack, but I think it'll be a really close game. I do think this will be the week at home that Timmy gets his first FBS win of his coaching career, second overall. And maybe it'll take a last second field goal for Hawaii to do it this time. But I anticipate a game that goes right down to the wire.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope for another entertaining game. Hopefully people are encouraged by the strides we saw against San Diego State as it stands here Wednesday midday. That line's actually climbed to 6.5, the Wolfpack favored. So, looking for the upset, the Bows. They've done it before as home dogs against some Nevada teams, albeit some better Nevada teams in years past. Some memorable wins there. BMAC, we really appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on. It is a lot to keep track of, and we appreciate you kind of keeping track of it all for us. And maybe we'll be here in 2027 on episode 7096, talking to BMAC when the new Aloha Stadium is ready for its grand opening.
Hey, I'll always have that feather in my cap. First 2-time guest on the pod.
That's right.
You guys.
Hey, automatic BMAC. Thanks, buddy.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, Jordan Hunter back with you. Big thanks to Brian McInnis of Spectrum News for joining us. It's a mess. I don't know how else to put that. Hunter, before we kind of close this thing up, get into the comments in our little overtime segment, I don't know if you had any final thoughts on the whole situation. The other thing about it is, it's like I almost don't read everything now, or I don't listen to all the comments because it'll change. Like it's changed so many times. So it's like I almost don't spend my mental bandwidth on trying to figure out what the latest is, because the latest will just change. And so it's like, do we pay attention? But that's kind of how things get lost, right? It's like, well, nobody's paying attention. All of a sudden it's something completely different. So yeah, maybe as part of our jobs, I should be paying a little more attention, but it's just one of those things, man. It's just constantly changing. So it's like, what do we get invested in this? Should we be excited about that? Probably not, because this and that will be something totally different by the time next year rolls around.
Yeah, I'm totally right there with you. I don't even know if it's newsworthy. When the preliminary sketches came out about it, I'm like, yeah, right. And then here we go yet again, the same old song and dance. It's so funny, for me, describing living in Hawaii to my family living on the mainland with stuff like this, like University of Oklahoma, when it's time to build a new stadium, they get it done in a summer.
Right. Yeah. Between seasons. Let's get it done there.
It's time, like all hands on deck. This is getting done now.
Yeah.
And it's just not the case out here. And I hate that it's so comical, but it happens time and time and time again, yeah. Jordan. It just does.
Yeah. It really does. And that's the sad part about it. And that kind of is a nice little segue, because one of our commenters, our guy, Jason, who was up at the San Diego State game, he was at, was able to take in some of the other games throughout, and was like our guy up in Vegas. And he went to the game, and he was kind of like, hey man, great atmosphere. First of all, he was encouraged by the progress he saw on the field, but the comments about the stadium I thought were really interesting that he left us on Facebook. One, he said the crowd was great, very, very cordial, some fun banter, a little trash talking, but all in good nature. But he was saying Snapdragon. He was big on it, and he's like, Hawaii should hire those people to rebuild Aloha Stadium. It was in section 113, I think he said. Enjoyed it. Hopefully he can get the drive out to Fresno from Vegas to take in the Fresno State game. But it's like, yeah, man, you see what San Diego State did. Look, and they haven't really been able to fill it either in any of their home games. So one of the early games in the season where they were playing at like noon or whatever, people were like, it was like heat stroke time.
Now, there's UCLA, by the way. I might just throw that in there. They fractionally fill the Coliseum. So
yeah, and that's for a team that's undefeated in top 15 in the country. So
that's right.
It is what it is, but in terms of amenities, like that place is beautiful. And the other thing is, for if a new Aloha Stadium were to look something similar, Hawaii would be the main tenant, but you'd be using that thing for so many other activities, right? Totally. Concerts, high school games, to name, just a couple. But I mean, you could hold all kinds of events in there in a state-of-the-art facility. But yeah, he was Snapdragon might be a little bit of a pipe dream for us at this point, but it's a vision of boy, that'd be kind of nice.
Dude, from an aesthetic standpoint, I'm definitely on board. We've been talking about it probably for over a year now, Jordan. Whenever the decision was made that we have to move away from Aloha Stadium, that big time college programs are successful with smaller stadiums. I decided that I went and watched Drew Brown play at Oklahoma State, and Stillwater's facility is not that big in terms of seats, yet it was awesome. It was fantastic. It needs to be sizable enough to handle those huge venues, those huge events, like when Bruno Mars comes to town, mm-hmm. When we inevitably have the Eagles play every 5 years or something like that, or a Van Halen reunion show to celebrate the life of Eddie. But I don't know if we need another, was Aloha like 80,000, something like that?
50. Yeah. 50.
Okay. I don't know if we need to go that big again. So I'm with them. If they're available, come 6, 7, 8, 9, 15 years down the road when we get around to actually building it, maybe those guys will be looking for more work. So
yeah, we'll see. It's kind of interesting. Snapdragon, I believe, is 35,000 expandable to 55. And I don't know exactly what that means, if that's like temporary expansion or they've just left a room to construct 20,000 more seats. Different type of activities and events. You can obviously fit different configurations in there, right? You can put people on the field for concerts and things of that nature. So yeah, big shouts to Jason for dropping us another line. Also heard from our guy Al from VA on YouTube. Big thanks to Al. And a quick little overtime before we head on out of here. Saw on Twitter via the guy himself, Cole McDonald, former University of Hawaii standout, obviously a little cup of coffee in the NFL. He's still been out. Was really cool of him to kind of get out to pro day last year for the 2022 guys, if you will. But report is that he signed with the XFL. So I think he will eventually go into like the player pool for the XFL draft once that rolls around next spring. Who knows? That might be the perfect landing spot for him as The Rock and his business venture, get that whole thing re-jump started in the XFL come next year. So shouts to Cole, who's also a temporary tenant every once in a while of like Hunter's living arrangement. So, he's in good hands.
No, absolutely. Super excited for him. Kind of known about this for a little while now. So the XFL, they're kind of doing things different, figuring it out as they go. It kind of feels like from an administrative level, but he signed a basically the equivalent of like a national intent to play. That's like what they're calling it. Basically meaning you are signing a contract to the XFL that you won't play in the NFL next spring or be, a part of a team, so that the teams in the XFL can draft you in the January draft, which is when they're attempting to put all this together. So for those listening, he's not quite on a team just yet, but he is one of their main marketing pieces that they're trying to build one of these franchises around. So very close to that guy. So stinking excited for him. Maybe we'll have to have him on the pod, Jordan, one of these days.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
XFL. Yeah,
that'd be awesome. Yeah, he's a busy guy, but we'll see if we can corral him and get him on the pod here going forward. So now that'll be a lot of fun. Best of luck to Cole. I do think that could be, especially if he ends up in one of the particular XFL cities. You got some pretty good offensive minds there signing up for the XFL. So that should be pretty cool to keep our eye on. No doubt about that. Big thanks to Brian McInnis for joining the pod of Spectrum News to talk about the stadium situation. Big thanks to our guy, Jaron Kobashigawa, as well, who's got to edit all of these different things. I don't know how many different times we recorded to piece this thing together, but he is the man, and we'll make sure this thing goes off seamless when it drops for you folks tomorrow. Big thanks to our sponsor, Spectrum Mobile Hawaii USA, Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill. Of course, this has been episode 59 of Hawaii Football Now. For Hunter, I'm Jordan. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the game this weekend, everybody. Hopefully Hawaii coming up with that dub against Nevada. We'll see you down at Ching. Aloha.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helly and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.